So yesterday we went over the piece in the Conservative Home about what 3, 4 different Conservative MPs who were getting together, that they were rallying for Badenoch, that she was going to be for unity, except they really couldn't tell you how she was actually going to achieve unity, and that she was going to be rallying the party together and bring in the age of Badenockism. Except they didn't really tell you what that was. If anything, all they said was, "This is Kimmy Badenoch. We promise, guys, she's the truth teller," but didn't tell you what truths she was telling. Meanwhile, trying to mull over this idea that, once again, this is the person that is going to bring unity to the Conservative Party and it will go riding back into victory. As I said before, if it is Kimmy Badenoch who does win this contest, she isn't going to last long. Badenoch does not make friends, she has frenemies. And here's the thing, at the top, the Wire quote that I used, "When you come at the king, you best not miss." And I will tell you now, she's going to have the biggest target on her back. There's going to be people wanting to settle the score with her. Oh boy, it will get very, very interesting if she wins. However, the other thing that I did mention in that video, Robert Jenrick being talked about being the dark horse in this race, that he was the real contender in this race. He was the real one to watch. Meanwhile, who's actually saying this? Well, no surprise, it's the Jenrick supporters who are saying this. So today we're going to cover someone talking about Robert Jenrick, and to see how, if this person or this particular MP can articulate what exactly Robert Jenrick is going to do and why apparently he is the only one that can attract the youth vote to the Conservatives. It's going to be interesting. So, as always, before we do begin, please do remember to click on the like, the share button, and of course, down below the Patreon page, the Buy Me a Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club link down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. So, let's crack on then into this. So, this comes from the MP for Windsor. I was going to say Westminster, but it's MP for Windsor, Jack Rankin, with the title of "The Conservatives Must Win Back Younger Voters, and Only Jenrick Knows How." Now, this is actually something, as we've talked about a lot, if the Conservatives ever want to survive as a party and, continue. Currently, their biggest opponent isn't Reform, it isn't the Lib Dems, it's the Grim Reaper. That is their biggest opponent, really, at this moment. And until they can actually put out policies that are going to attract, and we are talking people in the demographic of like 45 to 25, they've got no chance of coming back. No chance of coming back, because guess what? That older demographic doesn't last. And we already went over a number of Conservatives who have kept on bringing this up, that, hey, we cannot rely on this demographic going forward. So let's see how Jenrick thinks, or at least apparently knows, how to win back these voters. So, before the exit poll had even dropped at 10 p.m. on polling day, the Conservatives were already being invited to reflect on what had gone wrong for the party. In reality, the writing had been on the wall for months. Oh, this is something else that's becoming very, very clear. You are now seeing a lot of Conservative MPs come out and say, we always knew we were going to lose. We knew exactly what we were going to do, and we were going to lose this. So why didn't you do anything to avert that disaster? Why didn't you try and stop it? Why didn't you get Rishi Sunak to do some different new policies? It's all very well and good and said, Captain Hindsight type stuff of, well, we predicted this, we could see this coming, and then you did nothing about it. So, oh dear. Anyway, so let's get on into this. So some are, of course, wondering why the leadership election is going to take us 3 months and assume that it is because we are trying to fathom out why we lost the election so disastrously. The truth is all staring us in the face. We had the reasons shouted at us over and over again on the doorsteps and during many brutal months of campaigning. We lost because we repeatedly failed to deliver what we promised in 2019. And it wasn't just what you were promising in 2019, it was MPs knew full well that in 2019, what was being promised by Boris Johnson was a big, big series of overpromises that they knew they could not deliver on. And we saw that from 2019, constantly a Conservative Party that just was not interested in delivering on things like levelling up, like, improving the NHS. So the list goes on and on and on. There is not just one, I think, true thing that caused the Conservative defeat. It was everything all coming together. And until you can tackle all that stuff, this, I don't know, Gordian knot of Conservative loss, until you can actually undo that, there's no way coming back. There's no one thread they can just pull and see, ha, thread undone. This is no what is it Alexander, I think, who cut the Gordian knot? I can't remember now. I can't remember my Greek history. But yeah, there is no one person coming forward and slicing the Gordian knot in two. That ain't gonna happen, at least not for some significant time, because there is no wonderkin in the Conservative Party. So back to this. So we failed to deliver what we promised in 2019. We said we would secure the borders and cut immigration. We did the exact opposite. Maybe they should be asking why and how they failed on that. That should also be something they should be looking at. We said we would strengthen the NHS, but despite record funding, patient outcomes remained the same. Wasn't just record funding. There was a lot of other stuff going on there as well, which once again, they were ignoring. This whole thing of, but there was record funding of the NHS. If there was record funding of the NHS, why was it in such a state? We said we would grow the economy and keep taxes low, and we manifestly did not. Well, what happened to leveling up? If you were going to grow the economy, then you would have invested lock, stock, and barrel into leveling up, into those projects, really put the money in. And there's no excuse. There's no excuse, because they had an entire white paper. And we've been over this before. The first 2 chapters in that white paper were spot on about the problems the UK was facing in the north, these left behind places, and what they needed to do. And when it came to Rishi Sunak, he did not put the money in to do it. And many Conservatives also refused to put the money in. There was no arguing about, well, hold on, why are we cutting back on all this money, where the first 2 chapters of that white paper said this is the amount of money that we need. And then, of course, keeping taxes low. Once again, the Conservative ideology obsession. If you cut taxes, what is the government no longer going to do or fund? But there you go. So he continues, if you repeatedly break your promises to the electorate, you will be punished. So this is actually, again, going back all these things like, oh, yeah, we lost because we failed to deliver what we promised in 2019. Once again, something the Conservatives actually should look at. What did they promise in 2019? What was the big backdrop behind all those promises? Well, of course, it was Brexit. Will they go back that far and say, oh, actually, maybe Brexit was the problem? Maybe all our problems, started really in sort of 2015 with the Eurosceptics, and then we ended up doing the referendum, and it was the Brexit referendum that sort of caused all that, and that 2016 was a lot of where our problems really started. Will they go back far? Will they ever acknowledge that? Doubt it. I doubt it very, very much so. So, back onto this. So, only elderly voters have now prevented the Conservative Party becoming extinct in 2024. Upwards is now not only of potential future direction for travel for us. We fell off the cliff and are now hanging by our fingertips. We need the next 3 months not only to figure out why we lost, but also to reflect on how we change. And how are you going to do that? Once again, the million-dollar question Conservatives are all looking for. So, young people, families, and the middle-aged all rejected us empathetically at the ballot box. The crossover point at which someone is more likely to vote Conservative is now 70 years old. And yet, what did you do for young people, families, and middle-aged people? You did nothing. You look back for the past week where we've seen, Starmer not, end the winter fuel allowance. It's now means tested. So only pensioners who actually really need the fuel allowance are going to get it. The fuel allowance was always a massive, bribe in many ways by the Conservatives to keep people voting Conservatives. A lot of people just did not need the winter fuel allowance, even though there's a lot of people out there who will just not straight up admit it. You've seen, I think, that all over social media for the past couple of days, in papers, etc. Again, one of the Conservatives saying, "Oh well, if you'd voted for us, we would have kept the winter fuel allowance." Well, guess what? The demographic that did not get or receive the winter fuel allowance were the ones that pretty much powered the victory for the Conservatives, not the pensioners. Again, changing demographics of the UK, but there you go. So where are we? So yes, there is now no future for our party until we once again have the full support from all regions and all the age groups of aspirational voters. Again, I love this is what they're calling this now. We need to attract back these aspirational voters. And it is the same old stuff we've heard time and time again by what they mean by that. So the reason we did not deliver on our promises to the electorate was that when we were faced with difficult decisions, we fudged them. Okay, that's actually an interesting admission. That is actually an interesting admission. Because I was about to say, well, hold on, you had a really large majority. And the big problem with everything they faced, and he's probably, I wonder how honest he will be. The real big problem was not that they just fudged them, was that they just choose not to go through with them, because there were what I suppose you could deem silent rebellions of MPs would hear about a supposed proposal going through, and then a number of MPs would turn up to the Prime Minister's office or say, a Secretary of State office and say, we will not vote for this unless you water it down. And that is something that I think has gone very much underreported, that as much as we saw all the physical rebellions, we did not hear about all the anti-NIMBY secret rebellions that went on, all the other like secret stuff that ended up watering down a lot. We even saw that with the very last thing with the leasehold. So yeah, you've got to deal with the problem and discipline within their party. And unless you actually admit that's a problem and you say how you're going to deal with that, then it doesn't matter what promises or policy you might want to deliver, because guess what? You might get a secret, you might get a a silent rebellion. You might get a very public rebellion in the Commons, and they force you to lose a vote. This is something, once again, they are ignoring. You have not seen a lot of MPs talk about that. And as I said, the loss was multifaceted for a number of reasons. So anyway, back to this. So instead of now confronting them head on, we blundered through with our large majority. You had a large majority. Why did you not actually follow through on it? Why did you end up fudging them? Anyway, we didn't make the long-term decisions. We dodged difficult reforms, and we didn't challenge failed orthodoxies because you were incredibly comfortable with those orthodoxies. The Conservative Party is the most currently, it is the most ideological orthodox party you can think of, and it is that ideology that they continue to chase and double down on. Something wasn't working. Wasn't the policy, wasn't the ideology, must be something else. Let's double down on it. And they refused to look into anything else that might be a potential solution. Anyway, so Britain is now at an inflection point. At home, our public services are struggling, and abroad, our adversaries are now rearming at an unprecedented speed. We need to deliver serious change to get the country back on the right path. This can be delivered as it was by Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s, without resorting to populism. Oh no, I know what's coming. If you've been following the leadership contest closely, a lot of Jerrick's fanboys and supporters, part of the reason why they're saying that he's such a dark horse is because this guy is like the next Margaret Thatcher. I kid you not, he is about to make this, as he's just said there. So get ready to hear a lot of comparisons here. But here's the thing: Thatcherism, not popular. How is this going to attract all these young people with Thatcherism? Yes, that's how. Thatcherism. I don't think so. Anyway. But to enact that change, we need to now collectively sign up to a core strong principles and a creed and put forward a leader with the ability to actually articulate them. When with the conviction intelligence now turn that rhetoric into victory and action. Yeah, congratulations. It ain't Jenrick. Trust me, when we get the first debates, if he makes it that far, you're going to see just how little charismatic or charisma, shall we say, Robert Jenrick actually has. And there is a reason why they keep on calling him Robert Jenrick, or Robert Jenrick, or Robert Jenrick. Anyway, with this in mind, it is now clear to me that Robert Jenrick is the only right person to lead us forward together. Our biggest failure, immigration. He is the only candidate with the experience and credibility. He personally secured the largest ever reduction in legal migration. And when it was clear that the government now lacked the political will to produce an effective Rwanda deterrent, he resigned on principle. The amendments he tabled to make the policy effective now were backed by over 60 MPs. Since then, he has been vindicated. Once again, those amendments would have never made it through to the Lords. It would have never, ever have made it through to the Lords. The Lords would have said no. The One Nation MPs, as we saw, if you remember during that, were also striking down many of these bills, stopping those amendments going through. Yeah, Robert Jenrick knows what he's doing, right? Once again, the Rwanda was not an effective deterrent. It would not have worked because we would have only accepted 200 people. How's that effective? How is that effective? Anyway, of all the leadership contenders, Robert is now best placed to communicate these issues to voters. He is his succinct rebuttal of Labour's King's Speech and his virtual video on migration with Neil O'Brien has now shown that he is a powerful communicator. It really wasn't. Where we what were conservatives talking about in the aftermath of the first Labour King's Speech? It wasn't, oh my word, how fantastic Robert Jenrick's speech was. It wasn't that. No one gave a damn about Robert Jenrick's simple, succinct rebuttal, or this viral video on migration with Neil O'Brien. That's not what conservatives were talking about. But to win, we need to gain support from voters from both flanks of our party. Once again, we need to bring unity. It is now a necessary condition that is now showing that voters that we now share their anger about the unrestricted immigration and will address it, and will also do so without alienating voters, without needlessly provocative populist language. So you're going to go with an incredibly hard stance on immigration and somehow do this without alienating your voters. This is the exact same stance that Rishi Sunak took on this, as well as in some cases Boris Johnson. Because Boris Johnson didn't like being seen as a racist. He didn't like the fact that he was getting called a racist for, at the time, Priti Patel pushing this really hard right stance on immigration. Is basically reheating that going to work again? No. Because we've already seen it. So once again, doomed to fail. But Jenrick has shown that he now understands how to achieve this and a delicate balance in presentation, persuading, not provoking. Then why weren't any other conservatives singing his praises since he left of his, principle? Anyway, we have done too much governing and left, too much governing left and shouting right. So, according to you, you've done too much governing left, meaning this guy thinks that the Conservative Party is just too left wing, but not right wing enough. Already, you can see this is a mess. Anyway, he continues, we need to get a firm hand on these core Conservative issues, demonstrate competence, and the moderate language which now builds our electorate coalition. As well as trying to win the confidence of those on the right and the left of that coalition, we need to now rapidly improve our standing with younger voters if we are to actually secure a political future. And what exactly are you going to do that is going to bring together not only the left and right of your coalition, but also these younger voters? Now, bear in mind, if you've been seeing all these riots very recently, probably the most active people out campaigning against, all those, far right riots. Anyway, he continues, I'm 31 and I got married several years ago. Too often it feels like everyone who voted for us is now under the age of 35 came to my wedding. But the problem is no longer anyone under 35, but under 65. This is nothing short of catastrophic for the future of the party. Okay, once again, glad you're acknowledging that. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is the $1 million question no Conservative can answer, because you've got to now put forward policies that will appeal to those people. What are you going to put forward to them? So, judge a man by his prior actions. Generic, I'm doing it myself now. Generic, oh, well, screw it. We'll just call him Generic. Generic is the only leadership candidate who has shown that during his time as Secretary of State for Housing, that he's committed to taking the tough decisions needed to meet the lower and the first rungs of the ladder and the opportunity to get Britain building. Really? How did he actually do during Secretary of State for Housing? And also, was he not involved in a quite a serious scandal about, shall we say, approving a planning permission? I think it was Robert Jenrick, right? I believe it was. You know? Oh yeah. Oh, he built those houses. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Anyway, that's to show that, of course, you go back through all the conservative period, and guess what? House building was at an all-time low, continuously falling. So back to this. So he was taking the decisions to lower the first rungs of the ladder, the opportunity to get Britain building. He paid a heavy political price during the last Conservative government for promoting a zonal planning system based on promoting urban growth areas whilst protecting the green belt. I love it. NIMBYism at its best. We're going to have a zonal planning system, but just not in the green belt, or maybe not that specific area, because, well, we like that. And if you put some houses there, well, maybe that will affect our. Oh, he is going to fail spectacularly if he tries to take on and please the NIMBYs in his party. Anyway, he also delivered in practice during his tenure in 2021, and Britain reached its own highest rate of house building in almost 40 years. I'm sure he did. I'm sure that is a perfectly true and accurate statistic on that. In opposition, this will compare very favorably against the record that Labour now seems to set to create for themselves, lowering targets in London and other urban areas while increasing them in the northwest to protect their own NIMBY members in Parliament. I love it. Once again, why are you not building houses in inner London, guys? Why are you building houses in the north and northwest? It's not like, the north and northwest need houses too, right? Right? Oh, anyway, this is now a golden opportunity to start bringing back young people inside the conservative movement by being by being the true party of home ownership. I'm sure that's going to bring young people back in their tens of people that will back that. Yeah, because once again, a whole load of other reasons. What are you going to do about renting? What are you going to do about, jobs, investment, all these other things? If you were just going to say, oh, we're going to promise to build housing, guys, well, look at your past record. That it does not speak very well. Your past record for housing does not speak very well. And especially when young people could not then afford to actually get on the housing ladder, which is one of the biggest problems of this. And of course, the fact that, was it 60% of people's income goes on rental income? But it's okay if we just build more houses in inner London, somehow this solves the housing crisis. That's so terrible. Anyway, there are no those though in the party who today would like to wave these challenges away because they are challenging, either by implying that immigration is not a casual factor in the housing and cost of living crisis. It is not. Immigration does not play a significant part in the housing or cost of living crisis. Immigration, once again, is the scapegoat for failed politicians like this guy to say, oh, reason there's a housing crisis, oh, immigration. Cost of living crisis, immigration. Wonderful scapegoat, which leads to what you've seen very recently, all those riots taking place in Hull, Southport, etc. But there you go. Back to this. or now by trying to out-NIMBY the Lib Dems in the home countries to hold on to what few seats we have left. And once again, I think if you had generic Jerrick, the Lib Dems would eat up those rest of the seats for breakfast. Absolutely. Both approaches are now quite literally a dead demographic, dead ends for the party. Generic now is the only candidate who can be who's been consistently talking about the need to appeal to young people. Having recently been to Canada and visited Perry Polov, he is now a blueprint for our renewal, and this has been proven to work. So you're going to take a leaf out of what the Canadian Conservatives. I know that we have Canadian viewers. I know we've got, Chthonic on here. I'm totally sure there are other, Canadian political YouTubers out there who can tell us about how, quote, successful that has been. Good luck. Anyway, but without this renewal, we will now wither and die as a political force. The only credible alternative to political decline is the one now being put forward by Generic. The status quo, or even tinkering around the edges, or the bland calls for unity without a unifying creed will not be enough. Generic offers a real brave challenge, and this is why I believe I will be supporting him for leader. I wonder how quickly this guy's going to change his mind when Jerrick drops out of the race. Let's see what people have to say in the comments. Someone straight away. Generic now is a spineless hypocrite who will lose more seats than Sunak. I know this from personal experience. His whole stance on immigration is a Boris-like fraud designed to advance his ambition. When he was housing minister, I wrote to him several times expressing the concern about a massive 3,000 plus social housing development in my area against the wishes of local residents. So a NIMBY again. Oh, a 3,000 plus social housing development? Not in my local area. So totally against the wishes of the residents. Then Generic was in favor of this and the need to, quote, house newcomers to the area. Question, what's changed? A, someone who looks like he could now be bullied by the head girl told her he should be the leader and the liar of the party and that he's got ambition. Maybe that I should join the heart of the I Heart ERC candidate, James Cleverly, and hire some old-fashioned telephone boxes where at least 2 or 3 MPs can at least meet after the next election defeat. Someone has, perfectly, good expectations of Generic there. Someone else here. I would like to hear Generic tell us the truth about why he was hampered by the government and the Home Office over Rwanda and immigration. Illegal and legal. To convince me, I would like him to spell out exactly what happened and the names, including those who are in the government. Tell the truth. Someone else here. Judge the man by his prior actions. How does painting over Mickey Mouse murals appeal to voters with young families or anyone who's escaped from hardship or abuse? That is his D-Day moment, his bacon sandwich moment, his Owen Paterson moment, his mini budget moment. He will never recover from it. Unelectable. That's actually quite true. He will never escape that. He will never escape that. Someone else here. Generic is an absolutely ambitious, unscrupulous nobody. Anybody with the slightest social skills can see straight through him immediately. He is certainly not the key to younger voters. Someone else. A rank opportunity given to performance gimmicks. He's now not a team player. See if there's any more fun ones in the comments. Someone else here. But to win, we need to gain support from both flanks of the party. Yes, but that's just so easy to type sweet nothings. If we cannot actually believe Generic's sincerity in the last few years, he attempted to steer harder to the right and even woo the ERG side. He even joined them in several rebellions against our leadership, and he is now suddenly just going to appear more moderate and reasonable again? Question mark. Is it just all an act? Does he just blow with the wind? Young people and families, middle-aged, all rejected us empathetically at the ballot box. Correct. But why do you think that Jenrick will then appeal to young voters' parents and grandparents when they're doing the very opposite? When he ordered the children's murals in the migrant centres to be whitewashed, he did so in order to post his hardline credentials with the GB News crowd. This is not the action of a family man with empathy and compassion. Please come and answer this. Has he shown any remorse? Uh, I'll tell you what, that really is his bacon sandwich moment. I wonder if this will come up more in the leadership contest. So we'll see. When it was clear that the government lacked now political will to produce an effective Rwanda deterrent, he resigned on principle. Really? I thought he resigned out of blatant opportunism, anticipating that would then be a vacancy at the top following a general election, and it wouldn't hurt to polish his right-wing credentials ahead of him. Oh. Someone here, yeah, someone here posting about how fantastic Jenrick is, and then someone else immediately posts, how many times are you actually going to post this? And how does it actually stand up against your post earlier about generic overloads? So I think that's really it. Oh yeah, this is it. Robert Jenrick will be the end of the sensible, trustworthy Tory party. He wouldn't know public service if it slapped him in the face, and it is very clear from his actions. Bet he is now investigating expense claims and the mysterious £12 donation, or even ignoring the Home Office when they voiced concerns that the Border Force officials were being bribed. He is in for it himself and only. Sad to see the party fall for this faker. So, yeah, you can see, bear in mind, this guy is not popular. He is not popular, as you can see. There isn't a positive comment about him there. Not one positive comment. He is doomed to fail. He is very, very, very much so doomed to fail. He really is. He's how long he lasts, like I say, I think Milstride is going to be the first one to drop out. Maybe Jenrick, because if that is what conservative supporters are saying, they don't believe him. They think he will just blow with the wind and say whatever's political opportunist to him. They keep on bringing up the mural, the Mickey Mouse mural. In that, every single comment brought that up. He's done. He is donezo on that. That is for sure. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And of course, we'll see you all next time.